Alright guys, so the Avengers pre-order beta just ended, and by the time this video goes live, the free beta, if that's what you want to call it, will be close to going live for everybody. So I just wanted to give my impressions on the game, what I think about it, how it's going to impact the full release, and most importantly, your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. But so, let's start out with just an overview of what you get in the beta. So you play this A-Day mission, which you've probably seen a million times at this point. You play as every character, and I think something that is super important that a lot of people don't stress enough in their impressions is when you're playing as these characters in this A-Day level, you have all of the skill tree abilities that you later have to unlock from, leveling up and playing different missions and getting the skill tree. Even within the beta, you still have to get these abilities, but on this A-Day mission, you start out with all of the skill trees maxed for each character. So that's just something interesting that I don't think has been brought up a lot. But this first mission that they give you access to, you get to play as Thor, Captain America, Hulk, Black Widow, and Iron Man, right? And they give you little bits and pieces that's very scripted and very on rails for each character, right? And from here, I won't stay too much on this mission because this is probably what you've seen the most. And something that we need to keep in mind is the audience for this game, right? When reviewing something like Rainbow Six Siege, for example, it was a heavy focus on competitive gameplay. While the casual gameplay is there, the large audience of that game is competitive, right? With this game, you have so many different audiences that this appeals to, right? There's the people who play games constantly, play all different types of games, really know all the technical terms and all of that I could break this down for hours. And then there's the more who I think they're targeting, which is the younger kids who, Infinity War is one of their first Marvel movies they saw. That Fortnite age range kind of is what I'm talking about. And they just like the Avengers. And then there's the older age range that grew up with the comic books and all that pre-MCU. So, with that being said, I'm trying to keep this super simple. So that way, all three different groups can kind of understand the pros and cons of the game. But let's just get into it. So, this is the next scripted level they give you after A-Day. And this is where the game kind of starts to show its colors here. And so when you get to the war table, they have different types of missions, some being single player, some being multiplayer. And the A-Day mission with the second mission where you play as the Hulk and Kamala Khan is also very scripted, just like the first one. But it sounds like a bad thing, and from, a general standpoint, I would say that's a bad thing. But after playing the multiplayer missions, these are actually quite enjoyable. I think that's something that is different, but can be expected from an Avengers game, right? We like the big, over-the-top movies. I mean, the ones that do the best are the crazy Infinity War Endgame, the big, blockbuster action, right? And within the game, in my opinion, it's the same way. The multiplayer missions they give you, there's two styles to it, right? So there's open world ones, where there's a main mission that you can just go and do, and then a couple of side activities. These take about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the difficulty you put them on, and there was a fair amount of them in the beta, I believe 4. And then there is the different variation of that, which is just kind of a training simulator, where you're in a AR room, and you just fight off waves of enemies at increasing difficulties, like you've played in multiple other types of games. And so, as you could guess, the second one gets insanely repetitive after about the second time doing it, right? And they have a third mission type, I guess you could say, where they have these locations that are within these open world levels that are not as fully fledged as the big open world levels, but they're just these mini areas that you can play to take you out of that little AR room, but it's still a short little 5-10 minute mission. So we're going to break this up into the two type of segments, the open world and the AR missions, right? The open world ones, I think, work really well, right? If you don't want to go do all the side stuff, you can just go straight to the main mission and be done. If you're like me, you like doing all the side activities and getting the chests and getting new gear and all of that, you can complete everything and then go on and do the main mission. And I think those are really going to be the backbone of the multiplayer experience for this game. But the AR missions, I believe we did 4 of them, maybe 5, and they get repetitive quite quickly. I can say they are challenging if you put it 1 gear level higher than you are. They can actually be a bit difficult, but you have to choose to put it there. Now that's out of the way, what I want to talk about is why this could be a problem, right? Because the only missions, I guess I could say, that I thoroughly enjoyed in this beta were the super scripted on-rail moments, like the Avengers 8A mission and the second Hulk mission where you do the Abomination boss fight. Spoilers, by the way. I think these multiplayer missions are just a way to include multiplayer in the game, and even the open world ones are kind of lacking. They get repetitive after a while. It's nothing too interesting or unique. The set pieces aren't, massive. It's just fight this group of 10 enemies over and over again, right? So, if you haven't figured it out by now by watching this video or other videos, that's the problem the game has, right? Is that if you take the word Avengers out of the title, it has nothing unique, right? And that's why the scripted missions are the only missions that work, in my opinion. Because we're used to seeing the Avengers in these big, over-the-top, action scenes. And when we're playing these small little, virtual reality augmented training simulators, it's just not as interesting as the big battles we're used to. And so that's kind of the mission structure and all that, but let's talk about the individual characters now. So, like I said, they give you access to everybody on the 8A mission, but then immediately after that you lose access to Thor and Captain America. Now, these of course were my 2 favorite, just from the 8A mission alone, and I think that's on purpose, that they take them away, because they don't want to give you their best characters in the beta. That way you come back and play the full game and, so on and so on. Let's talk about everybody else. I think the worst characters, bottom tier, out of what they gave us is Kamala Khan, right? And it might just be because I found her insanely annoying in the level she was in with Hulk, but she's not that cool. Her abilities are okay. They're not terrible. I mean, they're interesting because they're new and unique, but none of her different abilities or just combinations are really all that fun, right? Next is, I would say, Black Widow. She is a lot better than I thought she was going to be. She's a lot more fun and interesting. They give her a little grappling hook to fly around with so that she doesn't have to run everywhere. Make it more fun. And then from there is Hulk and Iron Man after that. And Iron Man, interestingly, has 3 different trees he can go down within his skill tree with repulsors, lasers, and rockets. And while we're here, let's talk about gear. And so this is kind of going to be the make or break it point for, I think, the people who play a lot of games, is what they do with the gear. So let me just say off the bat, apparently the gear does not change your appearance at all. It is just the skins, cosmetics, that changes your appearance. Doesn't matter what rarity or how the gear looks. It doesn't change anything on your character, which personally I don't like, but that's up to you. So with this game, right, the main problem I have with the gear is, again, this is in the beta, is that they use kind of the same system as a lot of other games, right? So if we look at Anthem, the main problem with Anthem was that there was a lot of gear, but it was the same thing over and over again, right? The guns didn't look different, the armor didn't look different, it was repetitive. Destiny, The gear is different, it looks cool, and this game's kind of in the middle, right? There's a lot of gear, and it's different, but it doesn't change how things look. It just changes the numbers, and for a lot of the casual players, especially because it doesn't change any of the cosmetic abilities on the characters, I think that they're kind of just gonna ignore this section until they get to a point where they can't beat a level and are forced to change their gear, right? They don't care about the plus 0.48% ice reduction damage or any of that stuff, you know? They don't want a full stat page of all the different buffs and nerfs the gear gives your character. They don't care about that. And so I think the decision to not have it affect your character cosmetically is interesting, I guess I would say. I think it's not the greatest choice, but I understand why they did it. But let's talk cosmetics real quick before I kind of give you my overview. So they have this battle pass, I guess you could call it, for each character, and you earn gears or whatever the current currency is, COD points, whatever you want to call it, and it's in-game currency. I'm sure you can buy it with real money, and as you earn these, you unlock higher tiers on this battle pass for each character, unlocking new skins and calling cards and emotes and all of that. Now, within the beta, the skins were alright. I've seen some of the skins for the launch, and they look a bit better, but it's really going to depend on what they do. And I mean, if you're a fan of the comic books and all that, and you know what each one of these skins, why they're unique and all of that, that makes it a bit more interesting. But they're not too impressive, I think. But I kind of wanted to leave the gameplay towards the end. I talked about the gear, the mission structure, how each character kind of plays differently and uniquely. But I wanted to leave just the core gameplay as the last thing, simply because that's kind of the easiest thing, I guess, to analyze with this game. And so it has the Anthem problem and the Destiny problem, right? And again, if you want to move the more casual viewers for this, I'll explain what that means for you. So the gameplay is really solid, right? It feels good, it looks good, but the content isn't there. And for Anthem, it was, just content, stuff to do. Destiny kind of had the same exact problem. With this game, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I actually think it's going to have a lot of stuff to do. It's just that stuff is very repetitive, right? It's kind of a contrast from Destiny in a way, whereas Destiny, the gameplay is really fun and the gear is really good, and all of the mission structures are fun, but there's just not enough of it. In this game, I think there's going to be plenty of missions. Based off of what they gave us in the beta, I think there's going to be hours and hours and hours of gameplay in this game. And, that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, but I think the gameplay itself, unless the skill trees are greatly added onto and the gear is, added, and there's just so much gear you can't even, begin to fathom how much gameplay time you had to put in to earn all this gear, then really it's going to get repetitive quite fast. Even on the higher difficulties, you can only spam X so many times in a row before it gets boring. And I think that's where their live service thing comes in, that I can't stand that everyone's doing, but that's what we're doing. We're going to be adding characters down the line, and I think this will be the kind of final factor for the game, is how often they add content and how the quality of that content compares to the base game, right? Because we know PlayStation's getting Spider-Man, which I think will help boost the playtime of the game, but for Xbox, we're getting, we gotta wait, we got Hawkeye, and again, the coolness factor of Hawkeye is going to depend on basically everything, how long the game lasts. And I think that's really how to describe this game, is the coolness factor of the combat, right? It's fun to play, but it gets repetitive very quickly, right? Even within the beta, it got repetitive, right? I highly suggest playing the free beta if you're thinking about getting this game. Play through everything. Don't play A-Day and the second mission and then say, I love this game, pre-order it. Play A-Day, play the second mission with Abomination, play at least a couple of the AR fights, and play a couple of the open world multiplayer missions. I think there's 15 total, 17, something like that, total missions in the beta. I played through almost all of them. And so play through a large chunk of them and see if you get bored towards, about halfway through. I think that's going to relay how you feel about the game when it launches. That's just my thoughts on it. You guys let me know if you've played the beta, what you think. When you play the beta, what you think. Or if you just think this game looks terrible from the start. If you pre-ordered the Ultimate Edition 6 months ago, just let me know down below, and I'll see you guys on the next one.